Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.
You better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, ah, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, Paige made us watch The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. All right, Paige.
First and foremost, it is Todd and I again, because the fun thing about trying to get guests during Pride Month is that a lot of times they're booked at better stuff. So they're still going to come on the show just later, and we'll just have a slightly longer Pride Month, and I don't have any argument against that. That sounds great.
Or they can do a movie that isn't that. They can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want.
I don't care.
They're the guests.
Yeah.
But for me, we had not done this one yet. And I love this movie. It's very close and dear to my heart. I was just in my living room telling my husband about my plans to create a flip-flop dress. Yes, it's a classic. It is a classic.
And I hear he won the mini challenge on this week's RuPaul's Drag Race beach attire.
Creating a dress out of shoes.
Unorthodox beach attire. Yeah.
The only, I think, cooler shoe dress that I have seen is when people have made like chainmail out of Barbie shoes. I don't have the patience, but it looks fabulous every time.
I mean, yeah, that sounds wild, but would not sit down and complete. You know what I'm saying?
Now, Todd, when I picked this, you had never seen this movie, which surprises me because I feel like it's a movie you would love. I would be shocked to find out you did not enjoy this immensely today.
Paige, I do. Okay, yeah. So, like, this movie is possibly made for me, but I was like a child at the time.
Sure, of course.
I did not know that one day I would grow up into someone who also loves ABBA, maybe not to an alarming degree.
Not to a collecting fecal matter degree. But also similarly an ABBA fan.
And listen, Paige, that fecal mattered. Guy Pearce, like it was their most prized possession in the movie. That fecal mattered.
Right.
But yeah, Paige, no, I loved this movie from the second. And you'll know how early on this is. I thought they said Strumpet died.
Oh.
And then they reveal it's a
very,
trumpet
very early
on the casket. They're like, no, girl, it's trumpet, like the instrument.
Trumpet was a trumpet player. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, we've got like Guy Pearce.
Yes.
We've got Agent Smith.
Yes.
We've got Terrence. Is it Terrence Howard?
Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp, thank you. It wasn't Terrence Howard.
It would be way crazier with Terrence Howard. That would be such a crazy movie.
I was like, I know it's a famous Terrence. Who else is a famous Terrence? Yeah.
Terrence Stamp.
But yeah, so Terrence Stamp. And those are like huge actors.
Yes.
Also, dare we say it, all cis white straight men. So like.
Yes. And I do think in 2024, this would likely be a cast of people from across the LGBTQIA spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably have, like, I bet Bernadette's character would be a trans woman, right?
I nominate Peppermint. Yes.
Yes.
That'd be beautiful.
100%.
Yes.
Although I do love, like, I would love if someone like took the dancing that they do on stage and like do reaction shots from when they're judging the lip syncing for your lives on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Like just like a fan cut. Oh,
Yes.
that would be hysterical. I'm sure someone's done
That's
that.
gotta
There's
exist,
no way
right?
that hasn't happened.
It's gotta exist.
There's no way. Or cut it in with Tyra from America's Next Top Model. Like, we were all rooting for you. Just unhinged. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I love the music that they're playing with.
It's all disco, and I love me
Yes.
some disco.
Yeah. And I love drag. It's so campy and it's so fun. And so like I love this movie. I do think we got to get Bob on the bus faster. Like
Sure.
there's definitely a double beat story-wise that takes up like 15 minutes. Outside, man, it's probably more like 10 minutes, honestly. But like,
Well, and to be honest, this is 100 or so minutes long. So if you
Yes.
trimmed 10 off of it, it's a tight 90.
it is.
Yeah.
And should be. I think we got to get Bob on the bus faster because Bob is most of the audiences into this world. And that's when the love story sort of kicks off a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and like it's one of those love stories that just makes your heart warm because it's just like a person seeing another person for who they are,
Yeah.
and just being kind and wonderful to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so nice.
They don't ever really confirm, although I think it is pretty clear at the end, that they're sort of together at the end of the movie.
I take the end of the movie to mean that they are together.
Yeah.
Yes.
I take the end of the movie as Bob like, I'm going to give her some space to say goodbye. I'll see her at home, you know? Because he's like looking over his shoulder at her, and then he just walks in. He's like, she's got it, you know?
Yeah, I think because the movie does kind of jump 2 weeks or so at that point.
Yeah.
I think from the time that Bernadette lets him in with her flowers, that I think they probably have had some sort of relationship from that point forward to the end of the movie. That's how I interpret it.
I know he gets Bernadette flowers and apologizes for the previous performance.
Yeah.
But in my mind, he wasn't talking about the performance that they got like sort of beat up at. It was like a sexual kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's very possible. We don't know what happened outside with the cake.
We do not know what happened outside with the cake, but Bernadette was so drunk she fell asleep with her face on the cake. And that is concerning.
Can I tell you my biggest fear in this film? I mean, obviously, the characters encounter some scary things and some intolerance. All of that's very scary. But for me, sleeping outside in Australia, like,
oh yeah,
the amount of things that could crawl on you and bite you,
the amount of things that actively wants to eat you
or kill
in
you
that place. Yeah, I'm out. That's not going to happen for me.
Oof, magoof.
But I did love that their response to the literal hate that got painted on the side of their bus, on the side of our Priscilla, Paige.
Priscilla, who I did love in chrome, but I also love in pink.
I love that they Operation Petticoated Priscilla.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
It is very awesome. I think one of my favorite things about this movie is it portrays multiple different stages of life, multiple different types of relationship, and every character undergoes their own growth arc within their own, I guess, world, if you want to think of it that way. You know, Guy Pearce's character is kind of fun and freewheeling, and why are you guys so serious, and everything's fine until he encounters some real homophobia.
Oh, yeah.
When he was not expecting it.
He finds out it's different in the rural areas of the country he lives in, which I'll say is Australia in the movie, but that's not different in America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And then you have Hugo Weaving's character.
Agent Smith, baby.
Agent Smith, who is working through things that have happened in his past that he didn't expect to impact his future, but also trying to marry his past and his future together into whatever his current life will be, and trying to balance the fact that he has a son that he likes and wants a relationship with, but also has a life that maybe is not always considered conducive to having kids. And how is he going to balance that? And then you've got Terrence Stamp playing Bernadette, and Bernadette just wants to be loved for who Bernadette is, not what Bernadette is, and find someone who truly sees her. And it's so beautiful.
Or who Bernadette was. I think that was part of it. Like,
yes.
Because Bernadette was like an aging but famous in that scene person, right? And so she wanted to find someone who like loved her for her, not because they used to be famous or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I like that arc. I honestly like love that her and Bob figured it out.
I love it.
Bob's
I love it so
first
much.
wife, little crazy, but like
What?
loved her energy a little bit. Like that, I thought he was great.
I also love that, like, because of, I would say, societal experiences, when you first meet Bob and his first wife, you make some very quick assumptions about that relationship and what it is and how it came to be. And then on a second flashback, it is revealed that it is not what you thought. And I would argue that perhaps Bob has been closeted for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So like, I fully think that we're supposed to think in the moment we meet Bob that he is like this not great guy who has like a quote mail ordered bride or whatever and doesn't maybe treat her the best. But he actually, I think, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but that second flashback we get, I think she may have been sort of a con artist playing a con, and he
I think a little bit.
Yeah, so like he just got shit-faced. I mean, outside of him being married and just like that being on a piece of paper, everything about Bob screams he's super interested in Bernadette, right?
Yeah, of
and
course.
not really in his wife.
Right. Yes. And I think that's from Jump Street.
Yes.
Like literally
Yeah.
from the time they meet him. Yes.
Yeah, like when they're sitting down at coffee or whatever at his table, he's like leaning into the conversation with Bernadette and trying to get his wife to stop talking. Like he's very into it and not into his wife.
Yes. It's a complicated relationship, but it makes for a good fun movie.
It is funny. I thought it was great. And I loved Guy Pearce's reaction to the tricks that Bob's wife does at the bar.
Let me tell you, if I ever am in a position where someone is going to perform those tricks,
Okay.
and I could be there to I'm gonna watch them. I'm curious.
Oof, I'm not.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm out.
You have fun with that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn things. I'm gonna expand my horizons.
Listen, Paige, some things should remain a mystery. I don't want to know what it feels like to have a stranger bounce a ping pong ball off my face from her cooch. Like, I'm good.
Oh, I'm not gonna try and catch it. I just want to see her Kegel strength. Like, I am here for an athlete. That's how I classify her.
As I'm thinking through that.
If you knew it wasn't going to hit you, right? If you knew it wasn't going to hit you and you weren't going to catch it, you could just watch it happen and be like, wow, the human body is fascinating.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I actually think I would enjoy most being on like the pitching end and watching it from the perspective that Guy Pearce gets to.
Oh, yes.
Because they're watching her bend over and just like shoot ping pong balls like it's American Gladiators and they're trying to get up the...
Yes, or like dodgeball.
Yeah.
But here's my thing that I notice in that scene every time. You don't ever see her reload.
So I thought it was also a magic trick, Paige, because we only see her put one ball down there and then 3 come out. So,
which means either she had 3 up there already or 2 up there.
Well, no, 3 came out, right? So she put 1 in. So she gloved 2 before she even went in there and did the show, right?
Yeah, gloved.
Like that was the final.
Yeah.
Like she knew that was the piece de la resistance.
Yes.
So she's ending with that.
Exactly.
So like the whole time she performed that whole show
2 balls deep.
with 2 deep in the glove. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then she sticks 1 in and then fires 3 cannons, you know?
Yes, like a Nerf shooter.
And most people in the scene are like, you know, like, oh, that's very nice. But like they're moving out of the way. There was that one dude in the back who just like put his arms up and his mouth open like, let's do this.
And again, I don't want to catch it, but I want to see it happen. I don't think I could. Like, just the logistics. And so I'm curious about someone who can. It seems pretty tame on the list of things that like other people's bodies can do that I can't, for me to like be curious about. Watch, I'm going to get so many DMs from people.
I don't know. That would be pretty high up on the list, I'd imagine. Like, you know what people that can like run a marathon look like and can do, right? This is like one of the ones that I can't do that like I'd never be able to do.
Yeah, but running a marathon's boring. If they were running a marathon and shooting ping pong balls out of orifices, then you call me.
Any orifice? Because I could like run a marathon with ping pong balls in my mouth and just spit them out.
I mean, that'd be tough to breathe though. And you'd have to glove too.
The weird part was Bob's wife was just standing there hoping I would shoot it into her. Sorry, I'm out. I can't.
If she could catch them too, holy shit! I'll buy 2 tickets.
And Paige, you know what? They're going to give you a whole seat, but you're only going to use the edge.
Only gonna need the edge. That's what I'm saying.
I love how we're like comparing sex shows to like monster truck rallies, and that feels honestly on point. Like that feels right to me.
Right? How is it different? Explain to me.
How is it different? I've only been to one monster truck rally.
Yeah. They don't do it in stadiums. That's the main difference. It's just like if more people could get behind this as a sport.
What, sexual ping pong?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of serves. No one's hitting it back, really.
But okay, if she could also hold a paddle.
With her vagina? Hang on. Is it like all downstairs plumbing doing the ping pong? Because that seems difficult.
This all seems difficult, and I want to respect their commitment to the sport.
Paige, this is a terrible pitch.
Great.
I want you to know up front, I hate this.
Okay.
Bob's wife serves.
Yes.
And then her husband has to return.
Okay.
So it's all in the hips. It's like you gotta swing the hips hard enough.
You mean
and then,
kind of like they did in Jackass 4 where
Yes.
they played ping pong with their dicks.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right.
I want you to know I hate this pitch, but CW, get at me.
Hey, Johnny Knoxville, you know what to do. If you put this in Jackass 5, I mean, I would have seen Jackass 5 anyway, but like if you put this in there.
It's funny to me that like out of the hosts, if you would ask anybody which one of you had seen every Jackass movie and which one of you had seen none of them, they would definitely pick wrong, right? Like everyone would be like, Todd's done Jackass for sure. And I haven't seen one. I've not watched one movie.
I did force you to watch part of one
did.
at my house last Halloween.
Yeah, you were like, this is the good one.
It
I'm like,
was.
this is just people torturing each other.
It is, but I think I actually showed you 4.5.
You did, yes.
Yeah, not 4, because I wanted you to see Poopies try to do that 150-yard dash. Anyway, that's one of my favorite ones. That and when he sledgehammers a ladder out from under himself.
I've enjoyed Paige explaining the pranks on Jackass more than watching any Jackass prank. I don't know why. It's just not my favorite. The pain part of it, I don't love.
That's why I loved the snake one, where they made them think there was a snake. There was no snake. No one was in any danger.
That one was the meanest though, Paige, because like they were scared for like their life. Like scaring, that's like trauma scared. That's unfair. Like that's not cool. I would take you kicking me in the shin or whatever the next season of Jackass was going to be over that any day.
Oh, that's my favorite one. Anyway, yes. So put the ping pongs in Jackass 5. I'm trying to think back and see if they've done that in another Jackass. They may have. Anyway.
I also want to point out that they bury the lead so well in this movie, and that is that we don't get to see Priscilla has a built-in tanning bed until like an hour 12 into this movie. They have a built-in tanning bed on their bus
that they have installed.
And we just don't, they don't even talk about it. Like it's not even mentioned in the scene.
Well, here's the thing. And I feel like if we're going to cut 10 minutes out of this movie, we could add 10 minutes of fancying the bus back because you see the bus.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it. The next time you see the bus, you're like, it's paradise?
I know,
How
right?
did this happen? I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it is great.
Yeah, I think it's very, very funny. Every time somebody sees this movie for the first time, which you obviously.
Yeah. So I literally watched it for the first time 20 minutes ago is when I finished it.
I think it's really funny that you're watching this whole thing and you're like, why do they have so much shit on that bus? Why is there so much shit on that bus? And then you see the ending performance and you're just like, how did they fit all this shit on that bus?
I know.
Like, where did it all come from? And I love that.
My favorite like moment like that is when they're stranded in the desert and then the locals come over and they're like, hey, let's have a party. And they had been in the middle of nowhere for like, and they haven't moved.
Yes.
But now they're just like where the locals hang out at like their Joshua tree, I
in
suppose.
The dunes.
Or something like that. Yeah, like whatever Australia's version of that is, right? And then
yes,
they walk over there. I presumed it was like pretty fucking far away. And then it's like, I guess we better perform. And you're like, well, you didn't bring anything with you. Immediate cut to them fully costumed out. Like, where did they did not bring that, but I didn't care. I was in it. I was like, hell yeah. And at the end, when they finally get to do ABBA because Bernadette found love, I was like, so happy for you guys.
I do think it's funny in that scene that they're in full makeup too. And I was like, so this should be like 2 hours later because it takes so long to get into drag.
I know, right? Because they had to walk the hour back to their bus and then get their costumes and then walk the hour back while they were putting their makeup on.
Yeah, drag makeup takes almost at least
time.
an hour.
Oh, yeah.
At least an hour.
If I've learned anything from RuPaul's Drag Race, it's that they got plenty of time at those mirrors to spill the tea.
Yes, and that's how you know who's not going to be on the next episode, because they're like, I had a really rough time growing up, but I feel like I've grown a lot since I'm here. Oh, it's been nice seeing you, Thorgy.
Oh, Bernadette's gone tonight, baby. Bernadette's staying home with Bob. That's what I learned. But yeah, I really did love that, like, they're pretty catty towards each other and they really love each other, but they read each other so well. And it's very funny to me because that's like, and maybe this is a stereotype, but like,
it's been my lived experience.
Yeah, exactly. So like every drag queen I've ever like loved on RuPaul's Drag Race could both read and receive a reading so well.
Yes.
Like it was, it's almost like the way you fuck with a really close friend.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I love it. I really do. And like the way they do that in this movie makes me believe that even though Bernadette doesn't ever really say one kind word to Guy Pearce, I know Bernadette loves Guy Pearce, you know?
I think there is that moment after Guy Pearce's character experiences some extreme homophobia, and the conversation she has with him in that moment is very sweet and loving. And I think I would be like, yeah, of course she loves him. Of course she cares about him. And even though, it was a mistake, it was foolish, they had warned him.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to live something to understand, but it's still not fun to learn that. Like, it's brutal.
No, I mean, he gets beat up more or less.
Oh, yeah.
And Bernadette sort of comes and like diffuses sort of the situation. Bob helps too.
Yeah.
But like, it was going to be bad. It was going to get way worse. Bernadette did cause or did save something that could have potentially led to something very, very bad.
Yeah, I think if Bob had not intervened initially, that Adam, a.k.a. Felicia,
yeah.
Guy Pearce's character, I think would have died. Like, I think it was mortal danger.
It was definitely mortal danger.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like escalating that direction. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Like, we don't know because someone steps in and saves the day more or less. But like, like a lot of people have been in that situation and not come out of it,
Yeah.
And that's why it's in the movie. Like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Bob stepping in, I don't think Bob was safe necessarily.
I mean, the guy who was probably going to kill Guy Pearce or at least beat the shit out of Guy Pearce threatened to do it to Bob right after. Like, I don't think Bob was safe. And that's why, and I love that in that scene, Bob is there.
Yes.
And very clearly not paying attention to Guy Pearce and trying to like pretend like I'm just one of the crowd. I don't know anybody here. It's whatever, And then Guy Pearce is like, oh, hey, look, it's someone I know more or less.
Right.
And then the guy's like, wait, do you know that person? And Guy Pearce knows. And I'm sure what makes me sad about this is I'm sure that like Guy Pearce knows because he's made this mistake more than once. And he knows that Bob does not want to be isolated as someone who knows him.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, it wasn't somebody I thought.
Yeah.
It's like such a good like way to show that like it's hard to be what Guy Pearce is,
Yeah.
Like you face so much like scrutiny, even today, and it's way better today. You face so much scrutiny and stuff in the world. And like, I don't know, I have a lot of love for drag queens because it is just like camp and performance and art. And it's just silly fun. I don't know, man. It doesn't hurt anybody.
No.
I don't know. I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's great. I love drag.
Yeah.
Legalize drag.
I know, right? Like, what do we?
I know. I agree with you.
It all makes me like very frustrated because
Yes.
and I'm going to probably cut all of this.
Or not, but whatever.
The people who are upset about drag don't give a shit about drag.
Yes.
They give a shit about othering someone else so they can be superior. It's like fucking gross and I hate it. But like, it could be drag or it could be literally anything else they can make like hay with.
Yeah.
So like, what are we doing?
Well, and a lot of the rules that they're placing on trying to outlaw drag just make it easier for them to arrest or persecute people just for being gay or just for presenting differently or just for performing something that's maybe not the norm. It's so vague and so blanket, it can only hurt people.
The only crime that anyone commits in this entire movie is that Guy Pearce stole that ABBA lady's poopy and put it in a pendant that I think he wears around his neck sometimes. And that's concerning to me.
Technically, that's not a crime because it's waste.
Paige, how
you can
dare
steal
you?
trash from a public area. I'm just saying.
Guys, what you did not know is this is now a commercial for Paige Esquire. She's now a lawyer.
Stealing trash. You can steal trash from public places. If somebody throws it away, you can.
I don't know. Okay, I definitely need a lawyer to weigh in on this. So, like, if I take a shit in the woods, can Paige take that,
Yes.
put it in a pendant, and wear it around her neck?
I absolutely can.
Please don't.
I'm not gonna. I don't want it. I don't. There's no one else's poop that I want. I have enough of my
Paige,
own.
you just said there's no one else's poop that I want while talking about my poop. So it made it sound like for a second, all you wanted in your life was my poop. And I cannot continue this conversation without my HR rep present.
I'm the HR rep.
Shit.
Ta-da! I don't want anyone's poop.
All right, well, why don't we just go through this movie scene by scene?
Let's do it. We open on Hugo Weaving smoking backstage.
Yes.
And we get right into the opening number,
Yeah.
which is I've Never Been to Me. And it's very, I would say, subdued. I would say he's phoning it in a little bit in this performance.
I think it's supposed to come across that way.
Yes.
Because I think that sort of starts his arc, maybe, of he wants an adventure and he is sort of reached a pinnacle where he is and hasn't really had to grow.
Would you say he's kind of like Bilbo Baggins?
Yes. It's his 111th birthday, and all he wants to do is wear a dress and lip sync a
I
song
mean, who doesn't?
and wear his wife's wedding ring. Also,
Love that.
I love him and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't talk about that before we started the movie, but I love them. They're just like two gay people that wanted to have a family and figured it out. And I love that.
Or banded together for protection because it is the 90s.
Sure, and that's fair, yeah.
But either way, I love them together.
Yeah, same. I definitely do think the wife is also dating. Like, the kid says that she has had girlfriends, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I think that they have an arrangement, and I do think that they wanted a family, right?
Yes.
Because they came to some sort of arrangement in order to get her pregnant. I don't know
Right.
that sex was involved necessarily.
Right.
But he definitely is the father, right?
Yes,
So,
yes,
like,
yeah.
I love that they figured that out, you know? And they seem to, like, really love and care for each other.
Yeah.
They're just not who does it for them. And that's great.
Well, and they care about their kid and like
Oh, yeah.
he's excited to have a kid, like, and to be in that kid's life. I do love their relationship and the relationship with his son as well.
And I sort of love the journey that Agent Smith or Hugo Weaving's character goes on.
Elrond.
Yeah. Why don't we just name every major trilogy that he was in 10 years after this movie? Like, that dude was one of the biggest movie stars for a while. Lord of the Rings and The Matrix. Amazing. Anyway, it all started with Priscilla, baby. But he is like, he goes on this journey of masculinity and fatherhood that I really like, because I think he thinks to be a dad means you have to be this masculine character that he is not.
Yeah.
And I love that by the end of this movie, although it does happen like a little too quickly, in my opinion,
Sure.
in the movie, but I love that it is still addressed that, like, the kid's like, no, just be my dad.
Be who you are.
Yeah, like I want to know my dad. I don't want to know your
My dad should be.
Yeah. I think that Hugo Weaving is playing his dad in that.
Yeah.
He's like putting on a performance. And his son doesn't say this, but more or less is like, just be you. I want to know my dad. And then he climbs the fucking mountain he gets all dolled up and goes on a hike. And I loved it. I cried. I don't mind saying it.
Oh, I cried during this movie always. But I also love that his wife says to him, just tell him the truth and be you. He wants to know you.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
She only gives him good advice, I would say.
Yeah, and that's, I think, important because the kid doesn't say that. The kid is like, well, you have a boyfriend when we go back to Sydney.
Yeah.
You know, which does signify like, hey, I don't care. Like, I
don't care, and I already know that this is part of the deal. Yeah.
Which fuck. We started the movie discussion too soon because we should have talked about this a second ago. But when Guy Pearce asks Hugo Weaving's son, like, do you know what your dad does for a living and like gets into the whole like your dad's gay, you know, like all of that. And the kid's like, yeah, whatever, man. Do you want to go play Legos?
Yeah.
And listen, he does answer correctly. He's like, yeah, bro, I do want to play. Of course I want to play Legos. They're Legos. What are you talking about?
Play Legos.
But like, I really like that they include that. And I think Guy Pearce's reaction to that is great. If I heard that now, I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, let's go play Legos.
But like in 94, if a child said that to someone who literally just got punched in the face twice by a fucking bigot, like he is clearly affected by a child saying that.
A little hopeful is what I would call it.
Yeah. And I love it. I love that they included that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can see why in today's sensibilities it might feel like a double beat, but in 94, man, like that meant it was different. It was just different.
It was different. And you can kind of even see in this opening scene where they throw a beer can at Hugo Weaving, which, by the way, never throw a drink at somebody on stage. Ever. You can literally kill a person that way. It's real dangerous because drinks are heavier than you think, and we can't see where things are coming from because of the lights. It's too bright.
Yeah.
So like we don't have time to dodge it. I have seen people pull off miracle catches from the stage, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Can I tell you the craziest thing I ever saw at a show? I was backstage. I'm going to tell you who it was because I saw it happen live.
Please do.
And it was fucking insane. The drummer for Cowboy Mouth, who is also the singer, was playing. Someone threw, it was a water bottle. It wasn't even a beer bottle. Someone threw a water bottle at him. Remember, he's their drummer, Paige.
Yeah, so he's behind drums.
Yes. He's like John Stamos in back there, and he throws one stick in the air. As he's playing and singing, he catches the bottle and throws it back and then catches the stick and goes right back to playing. I thought I saw a magic trick or like swamp gas from Venus. It was insane.
I wouldn't believe it if you hadn't seen it with your own two eyes.
I know, Paige. It was truly insane. We were there performing, but like we weren't big enough to talk to Cowboy Mouth, if that makes sense. So I didn't get
I've never heard of Cowboy Mouth before this moment, but that sounds cool as shit.
And that should tell you how big my band was, right? So like, anyway, it was the most impressive thing I've seen ever in my life behind the drum set. It was insane.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Anyway, don't throw bottles.
No, don't throw anything. The most impressive one I've seen was the one that went viral like 2 years ago, where that girl caught a PBR on stage. Like, so she had started doing political material and a guy in the audience got mad and shouted like Donald Trump and then threw a half full PBR.
I remember that.
And she caught it, chugged it, and threw it down. And the entire show, like as they're escorting the guy who threw it out, erupted. But then I loved that she came out afterward and she was like, he should have been pulled long before he threw anything at me because it's extremely dangerous. They should have pulled him first. I was like, damn right.
Yeah.
Because also what happens in this scene, because Hugo Weaving slips, that can happen and it's very dangerous. So Guy Pearce helps him off the stage and continues the show. Now, back in the dressing room, he gets a phone call, and it is Marion. We don't know who Marion is yet. We will find out as the movie goes on.
But spoiler alert, that's his wife.
Spoiler, it's his wife.
Yeah.
We get a brief flashback to him. I love dressed as a full chandelier at the birth of his son.
Literally connected to the ceiling. Like he is a part of the chandelier, but it goes all the way to the floor.
And all the way to the walls.
Yes, it's fabulous.
I think it's magical realism. I don't think that's what actually happened. I think this is his perception of that day of like, I'm not supposed to be here in this moment. And so it's the most heightened version of him in a very real, grounded situation.
The flip side of that, Paige, is that you're sort of insinuating that on some level the movie wants us to think that he showed up to the birth of his son dressed as a chandelier.
Who's to say?
Yeah, I definitely think it was magic realism because, oh man, that shit would be wild.
Yeah.
He just gets out of his car holding a chandelier like dress.
To like cut the umbilical cord. Like, hold on, I brought my own scissors. And they're just bedazzled.
Oh, shit. That would have been, I mean, honestly, do. Please, someone do. Yes.
But he goes out to a payphone and calls Bernadette. And it's in this phone call that we find out that Bernadette's partner, Trumpet, has just died.
Yeah. Not Strumpet, mind you.
No.
Trumpet.
Trumpet.
And Trumpet was like a 25-year-old that was like with Bernadette.
Yes.
Because Bernadette used to be famous. Or,
they were fetishizing Bernadette is what I would say.
Yes. And Bernadette even like points out that like they know,
Yes.
like that she knows it, like that relationship was very transactional for Trumpet.
Yes, she understood that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is like, it's sad. It's very sad.
Now, it's never funny when people die, except okay, the way that Trumpet passes, let's talk about it. Because Trumpet,
Oh shit, Trumpet.
according to Bernadette, was bleaching their hair and had the door closed and unfortunately passed out from the fumes and fell over and died. Now, that is the story we get because we don't get any information to the contrary. That's what we have to accept. I have always wondered if that was Bernadette covering for something that maybe was a little sadder, but that's the story we have. So it's what we got to go with.
I definitely think it's possible, Paige. Clearly, you didn't have a string of deaths this exact same way when Marshall Mathers became a thing in like the early 2000s and all the dudes
They
were
happen
like
in clusters.
bleaching their hair. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Paige. Like early 2000s, these kids be dying in these bathtubs just bleaching their hair out. I wrote that down because I was like, can you die that way? I don't think you could die that way.
Yeah.
You can really die that way? It's like the hairdresser version of leaving your car on in the garage?
Yeah.
That's okay. I thought it was just a joke. That's wild.
So it's not from the fumes on its own. It'll make you pass out. And bathrooms are all tiled.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you hit
Yeah,
your
yeah.
head, whatever.
You hit your head,
Yeah.
something like that. So yes, it is possible to die that way, usually because you have passed out, slipped and fallen. You know, slip and falls can kill people.
Oh, yeah, and do every day.
Yes, and do every day. But one would assume Bernadette found Trumpet
Probably.
and found the accoutrement for the hair, and that's the assumption that happened. I think it could very well be something else, but because the movie doesn't tell us, we are forced to accept this story.
Yeah, for sure.
We cut to Trumpet's funeral, which is very sad, but it shows how much the community cares about Bernadette.
Oh, yeah. Well, and possibly Trumpet, too. Trumpet might be a member of the community on some level, too. Don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, there was a pretty big turnout for the funeral.
Yeah, but it's after this funeral that Bernadette basically says to Tick, Hugo Weaving's character,
Yeah.
Mitzi, I'll go with you. Like, I'll go do this run of shows with you. Let's go. It's 4 weeks, equity minimum, 2 shows a night. So I guess they're there for a month.
Yeah.
Not 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
he's like, great, the desert's big enough for the 2 of us. It'll be great. And he's like, oh, the 3 of us, because Guy Pearce is going to come. And Bernadette is like, no, come on. Like,
Felicia is the worst, is more or less
Yeah.
Bernadette's vibe.
I read this as the, like, you're bringing an open micer? Like, come on. Like, no.
I mean, that would be, I think, the comic sort of allegory.
Anyway, Guy Pearce, the open micer, is very enthusiastic, but very young and inexperienced and very kind of in your face, loud. But that's the relationship this group has, essentially.
It's similar to that in music circles, too. It's a lesson that I learned the wrong way.
Everyone learns it the wrong way.
Yeah, you make that mistake because you're like, I want to network with these people. And they're like, hey, man, like I have to warm up. I have to play 90 minutes of music, you know? And I was famous in the 80s. So it's going to take a while for me. Like we were touring with like
Yeah.
Bret Michaels and like Stryper and shit like that. So like they didn't want to talk to us. I ended up talking to Stryper's chiropractor that they toured with.
Nice. You get free adjustments?
He did. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
He was super nice. He called himself the Rock Doc, which made it sound like he had some like radio DJ show. But he was like, nah, I'm just a chiropractor. And I was like, but you call yourself a doctor?
Okay, but I need to know, do you have credentials? Like, what is this? The Rock Doc? That's crazy.
I know, right?
But hey, you wouldn't think that just standing around on stage would give you back problems, but ooh boy, do your hips and shoulders hurt afterwards. And so, because you're standing like too straight for too long. And so I would kill to have somebody just constantly like whacking a crack into my back every time. Be nice.
Well, what's Jake up to late night? What are we talking about?
I don't
here?
take Jake with me for Jake's sake.
You're not going to get adjusted at the club. Come on now. You're going to go home and he's going to adjust you right.
He'll adjust
Turn on a little Barry White.
Oh, baby.
You know what I'm saying? And a third rhyme as well. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't take Jake because being on the road, and I do think that
Oh,
this movie
no.
does depict this very well.
I think so,
is
too.
boring as hell.
It is. It's like
Boring as
it's
hell.
100%. And that's what I mean. Like there are aspects of this movie that like as a straight white man, I found relatable just because I have also done the hurry up and wait for every show I've ever played in my life. And the hurry up and wait, Paige, I see you nodding along, is like got to get to the club by 3 to do a sound check.
Yeah.
And then you go on at 9. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah. Every single time. Great. I have arrived at the Comedy Store at 9:30 for no sound check. And for me to hit the stage at 1 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah. That's just the comedian version of hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait.
And it's like every performer knows that.
Yeah.
That is like an occupational hazard.
Yeah.
So when I saw that this movie was just those hurry up and wait moments, more or less, I was like, fuck yeah, I love this.
Yeah, that, and you know what? I'll touch it back on this when we get to it. We'll move along because we'll get there.
Yeah.
But Guy Pearce comes through with a bus that he purchased off some Swedish tourists, all named Lars, and Lars.
Yes.
For $10K, which a $10K that he got from his parents by promising that this was just a phase.
I love it. He was like, you know what'll set me right is a nice little trip to the outback. Maybe I'll meet a rural lady and fall in love.
Lady.
So he cons his parents out of $10,000, which today would be $21,000.
Good deal on that bus.
Honestly, yeah, not bad. It's got a tanning bed, Paige.
Well, they installed the tanning bed, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, they probably bought that bus for $20K and spent $30K in upgrades.
Of course.
Like, it looks like a bag of shit when they buy it, and then by the time they leave, literally the next scene, it looks great.
Love it. Anyway, we also see Hugo Weaving packing his Whoa Man beauty products. And I do love that they have essentially cold cream / moisturizer in mayonnaise jars.
Yeah. And then they like literally put it on you in this movie.
Of course.
The bar. Yeah.
Well, because here's the thing, drag makeup will fuck up your face, especially old drag makeup. Back in the day, like the products now have actually gotten really great. But you had to, like, putting it on, taking it off, all of that it takes so much out of your skin. You have to moisturize.
Yeah.
To, like, your life depends on it. It's like a huge thing. Even this level of stage makeup I will wear sometimes. It's like rough on my face and I have to be really aggressive about skincare. But also, there is a saying in the drag world, cover girl does not cover boy. So that is also why you will see drag queens use either specific drag makeup formulated for drag or specifically stage makeup. And stage makeup is fucking brutal on your skin.
Yeah.
It is. You could get clown lung if you're not careful.
It's thick.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's got a whole bunch of it.
Yeah.
But we kind of cut through everyone doing their various packing. So he's packing his makeup. Guy Pearce is packing dresses that his mom bought for him.
Yeah.
And then Bernadette is going through and just kind of thoughtfully packing her gear, which of course, again, is your like veteran who's like, I know exactly what I'll need. Like I pack in this order every time.
They've done this shit 1,000 times. Yeah.
1,000 times. Versus Guy Pearce, who's like, every dress, bring all the dresses.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they get on the road. They're singing songs to each other. It's only been 4 hours. And Guy Pearce is like, I have a headache already, and goes to the first aid kit, which is just a bar built into the side of a bus.
It's like a stocked fridge of like vodka and gin and like whatever. It's like everything.
Stolly and everything.
Yeah.
But he and Hugo Weaving are talking, having a good time. Bernadette's not really engaging with it. She doesn't want to be part of the foolishness. But it's during this exchange that Hugo Weaving's character Tick tells Adam, Guy Pearce's character, that Bernadette's real name, and I would say dead name, is Ralph.
We would call it that now. I don't know when that concept of dead name became a thing, you know?
I don't know what the term was at the time. I would say even before people like gave it a concept and a name, I feel like even at the time it was mean to do to somebody.
Oh, I think it's played mean in the movie because like Bernadette beats the shit out of Guy Pearce for dead naming her, and then like you don't feel bad for Guy Pearce.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Especially because I feel like Guy Pearce's character and Hugo Weaving's character, they get in and out of drag. They have names in drag. They have names outside of drag. They actively refer to each other interchangeably. And in my experience, typically when someone is in drag, they have a pronoun for whatever that drag is and that character. And then when they're out of drag, they are themselves and have their own pronouns, etc. Bernadette is Bernadette at all times. Bernadette dresses up to perform.
Yes.
But Bernadette is always Bernadette and insists on going by Bernadette. So, or Bernice occasionally for short.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's said, but in the movie, it's presented like Bernadette is a trans woman.
It is said.
Okay. It may very well have been said, but like it is very much the vibe that Bernadette is a trans woman and the other two are drag queens. And those those are different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different things. Bernadette is a post-op trans woman.
Okay.
So Bernadette has already had gender-affirming surgery.
Yeah, cool.
As discussed in a dinner later on.
That's right. Shit. Okay. Yeah.
So their first night out on the road, Bernadette and Tink tuck in for the night and leave Adam, aka Guy Pearce, outside grilling and lock him out of the bus. And he spends that first night outside, I believe.
I would be livid. Like, my parents bought us this bus because I conned them out of the $10,000. Like, I would have been very upset about that. Also, I sort of got it, though, because he offered them Vegemite and gross. I wouldn't let you on my bus either. Vegemite is the devil.
I have tasted it.
Same.
Not my favorite. But Speculoos cookie butter, you guys really popped off when you did that one.
They did not fuck up with that. But I have some friends from Australia, and they dig it. They love Vegemite.
Really?
And I'm like, why? I don't know. It's too tasty for me, is what I'll say.
Too tasty?
It's too tasty. It's just too much.
This is going to sound like a strange critique of it. Is it supposed to taste like that? What's it supposed to taste like?
Okay, true story. The first time I ever tasted Vegemite, the next thing I did was check the sell-by date.
Yes!
Because I was like, surely this went bad during World War II, and it's just stayed on the shelf because who the fuck eats Vegemite?
Who would ever do this?
And I came to find out that Vegemite was good for a while.
Oh.
It had a while left on it.
I have tasted it more than once. And every time I'm like, who would purposefully make something taste like this?
Someone was like, I want my toast to be disgusting.
I want my toast to be inedible.
It seemed like a prank, like someone at the office was just eating Jim's toast every morning because he'd butter it and then go to the bathroom. And so one day he was like, I'm going to make him think I put jam on it, but I'm going to put probably literal rat poison. And the guy who was eating Jim's toast ate it and was like, this shit was great. And then that guy went into business and made a shitload of money on Vegemite. Which possibly rat poison? Who knows? Allegedly? No one knows.
What's the weirdest thing you put on toast?
Man, I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, it's probably my mouth.
I'd say that's a universal experience.
No, I mean, that's probably the weirdest thing.
Okay.
I typically, so every morning pretty much, I throw one Eggo. You're going to make fun of me because it's one. I throw one Eggo in the toaster.
How dare you only eat one Eggo? That's 2 to 3 Eggos minimum. Anyway, go ahead.
So I throw one Eggo in the toaster. I wait 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
How are you going to sandwich one of them? Anyways.
You could fold it in half, although I don't. What I do is I take peanut butter.
Sure.
Put that on top. Little syrup.
Delicious.
Instant breakfast. And by instant, I mean 4-minute breakfast.
Yeah, I was going to say it takes a bit. Yeah. But no, aside from that you should double the intake, I see no problems.
So sometimes Natalie will make a little turkey bacon for breakfast for herself.
I love turkey bacon.
And so I'll steal a turkey bacon or two and rip it up and put it on. And that is a gourmet breakfast for me.
Okay. I could see that being good. I could. If I'm feeling really fancy and if I remembered to buy stone fruit, it's stone fruit season, I should go out and do this right now. I make fresh ricotta and keep it in the house most of the time.
How dare you?
So I will try and get really nice bread, toast it, put a layer of fresh ricotta down, typically with stone fruit if I can find it, like peaches or nectarines, and then a little bit of honey, and then smoked flaky salt.
Is anyone else glad I went first? Because if Paige led with this, I would not be telling my fucking Eggo peanut butter and syrup story. That shit sounds amazing.
A little bit of balsamic. It's delicious. Yeah. Apples if there's nothing else around.
Cut to me tomorrow getting my lonely frostbitten Eggo out of the freezer. Just knowing Paige is going to whip up something that probably has hollandaise or some shit on it.
When it's fall, I typically make challah from scratch, and I will toast challah with fresh ricotta. It's one of my favorite things to eat ever on earth.
It's also one of my favorite Gwen Stefani songs.
Yes. This butt was made by challah. I am a challah back girl.
Nailed it.
As in, that's where every piece of it goes. As I eat it. No notes. Keep doing it.
Guys, find yourself a friend who can tag your joke better than your original joke. Because that's what you guys just watched. And I was so proud of my subversive, I'll say, holla Batgirl joke. And then Paige just fucking crushed it.
Yeah.
After saying the word ricotta to me. How rude.
Ricotta. Make your own ricotta at home. It's way cheaper and it tastes better. Pro tip.
Sounds amazing.
Anyway, so the next morning, they get up and Guy Pearce is taking revenge by doing like brake checks with the bus to try and make Bernadette mess up her makeup.
It's so catty. And honestly, like, love it. That is very much like the immature first person time on the road, like just gonna fuck with everybody and see how I can sort of fit into this like road dynamic we're building. And I loved it. It was great.
Typically when I travel, I only travel with like a couple different set groups of people that are all around my same experience level. So I have not experienced somebody pranking on the road in a long time, but it's always one of those things that's funny in hindsight, not in practice.
Yeah.
Like that's how I ended up stuck in the trunk of a Jeep in Austin. Like it, things get out of hand.
Paige, what you are referring to is actually just a kidnapping. You were kidnapped in Austin. Anytime you're in the trunk, you've been napped.
It was because I had the shortest legs and we had to fit an illegal amount of people into a vehicle. And so I volunteered to sit in the back because it was enclosed. But then they forgot I was there and left me outside. And then none of them were answering their phones until the second car of people that had the documentary crew with them pulled up. And I texted one of them and I was like, please help me. I'm in the back of the car, and they could see my phone, like the light of my phone through the back window. So they let the documentary crew get me out of the car.
Paige, first off, how you doing, babe? Are you okay? Like, that sounds
No.
terrible. I'm sorry that happened to you.
It was only like 5 minutes.
Paige,
It was fine.
your friends forgot you in the trunk of a car and then made strangers get you out. And you're like, it was fine. It was all oofty-goofs.
I went inside and they were like, we were wondering where you were. And I was like, you guys left me in the trunk. And they were like, oh shit, that's right. Weed. Oh.
Paige is the only person I know that will refer to a literal hostage situation as something silly that happened to me one time. You were a hostage for 5 minutes.
There's a great shot of just my hand up against the back window of the car.
There's evidence, and these people aren't in jail, Paige. What they did to my Paige. No. No. I refuse, Paige.
Someday I'll find that footage. I'll get my hands on it.
You might not. You might end up in another trunk.
Maybe, as long as it's not in Texas.
But this movie does a really good job of like nailing the way you sort of subtly fuck with people on the road.
Yes.
The one thing they didn't do is ban someone from eating something, because that is something that happens on the road, or at least happened to me on the road.
Wait, let me ask some qualifying questions as someone who has similar experiences. Were you A, banned from eating something because it made your farts or poops so bad it ruined the experience for everyone else? Or B...
You can stop listing. That is definitely what it was, although it was not me. So my bandmate, who has since transitioned and is now Dean, so that's the way I'll refer to them in this story, was not allowed to eat gas station hot dogs, ever. We made that mistake once, and it was... my eyes, Paige. It wasn't just a smell. It was my eyes. They burned, Paige. We rolled down the windows, and there was nothing that could stop the stench. It was the worst. My friend, who was our more or less roadie, was sitting in this middle seat in between Dean and me, and was literally tears, crying how bad it was. Never again did Dean get to eat 2. They ate 2 hot dogs.
Yeah, 2 is the normal amount of hot dogs, Todd.
Dean is smaller than me.
Well, depending on how we're measuring. I'm shorter than you.
Fair. But listen, if that's the way your body handles anything, stop putting that in your body.
Yeah, that is rough.
If you turn hot dogs into nuclear waste, you should not eat hot dogs. Dean.
My favorite part of this is, and some people might not know this,
Fucking love Dean though.
even really, really fancy tour buses, like it is only the tippity tier of tour buses that have flushable toilets that don't stink up the entire tour bus. So typically you have to do something called hot bagging it, where if you have to go number 2, you have to put a bag in the toilet, poop in the bag, and then throw the bag away so it doesn't stay in the tour bus.
This is one of those things that like not many people know, but that is accurate.
My other reason why someone might get banned from eating things is if it was somebody's special food that they purchased and another person was stealing it.
Like that fucking toast that we put possible rat poison on, Paige. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. There you go. Anyway, they're driving and they again make landfall where they're camping out for the next night. And they're like, hey, how did you get this gig anyway? Who runs this casino? And it's at this point that Hugo Weaving's character says, well, it's my wife. And they're like, oh, your ex-boyfriend? And he says, no, my wife. I am married.
Yeah.
And we do get a flashback to the wedding where, again, magical realism, but they are gender swapped. She's wearing a tux. He is in a full wedding dress. And he does explain that, we were married for a while. We still care about each other. We liked each other. But at the end of the day, we swapped rings and called it a day and went about our lives, where she got his wedding ring, he got hers.
I love it.
Which is a little bit of an allusion to what we will find out about her later, that she is, I would say, a little more masculine presenting than him, and has her own relationships and her own style.
I mean, she is a lesbian in the movie.
Sure.
I mean, she has girlfriends. I think I see what you're saying. Okay,
but
I got
even
you.
within that a little bit,
Yeah.
presents her gender identity slightly more masculine.
Yeah, so that, and at the time you would just say lesbian, but I understand what you're saying because it could.
There is a difference, yeah.
And it could be something else. That's just not really something that was prevalent in pop culture at the time.
I think it was prevalent in the community, but not in cultural parlance outside of the community.
It was definitely happening.
Yeah.
It's been a thing ever since people have been a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it was something that you would see in a movie from 94 for them to name that.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, you're right.
There's a lot of things in this movie that you would never see in 94, but are in this movie, and that's why it's revolutionary.
I know, it's crazy.
But this is part of their agreement where he is now, and what he has not told them is that he has agreed to come take their son to live with him for a while so she can have a vacation. He has not told them he has a son yet. In fact, that will remain a secret pretty much till we meet the son. Anyway, he says to them, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you everything. I'm not sorry you're here. I'm glad that we're all on this trip together. Thank you for coming with me. But Guy Pearce cannot let go of this.
Yeah.
They have to make fun of it literally to death. As opposed to Bernadette, who is like, I've lived a lot of life. I understand that complicated things happen. This is probably really complicated for you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
But they get to their first, I would say, city stop, and they stop at a hotel. Now, on the way, they have been playing cards, and they make a wager where Hugo Weaving basically says, if I win, you never mention my wife again. If you win, name your prize. And the prize was that they had to walk down the main street in full drag.
Yeah.
Thus enters one of my favorite looks in this entire movie.
Yes.
The flip-flop dress.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna make one. I feel like I could, and I feel like I could pull it off.
When I said it looks like he's about to win a mini challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race, like he does.
Yeah.
It's like the challenge was to make beach attire in something that's not fabric or something. You know, he just took beach sandals and made a dress out of it. And it's awesome.
Just the weirdest Project Runway thing ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great.
It's amazing.
This is sort of the art quote part of drag, right?
Yes.
Turning anything they want into anything they want. And I love it.
Love it. Anyway, so they get to their room. It is muraled out, and they again partake in a road tradition of, well, what are we going to do now that we're here? Because you have to fight the boredom somehow. So you always have to find the one weird thing to do in the place where you're at. And they find the one bar.
Of course.
And go in full drag still into the one bar. Now, initially, I think this scene seems positive in this way of there's a woman that speaks out against them and doesn't want them to order, but they kind of shut her down and everyone kind of joins in. Everyone has a fun party. But then the next morning, their bus is still tagged.
Yeah, which is, I think, great because that's the way shit be a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because no one likes confrontation, but they love their bigotry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they do the most cowardly thing possible and they tag Priscilla.
I also think of it as everyone loves a gay entertainer, but doesn't love the gay people in their life. And I think this goes for any number of things, not,
And also any number of minority groups, Paige.
Yes, that's what I mean. I have seen ones that just say you can't just like Lizzo and be mean to your fat friends. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But in this scene, that's what this is them being like, they're fun, they're exciting, but we're not going to actually support or care for them or show them any tangible care.
Yeah.
But also, when they get back from the bar before they discover the bus the next morning, Guy Pearce's character is very, very drunk and is continually dead naming Bernadette.
Yeah.
Which causes Bernadette to beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. When they get back to the room.
Deservedly so.
Yeah.
And to the point where he's still hurt the next day.
Yeah, he's like, my face is hurt. And he's like, yeah, good.
Yeah. They do stop at a gas station where he does pick up paint. So there must have been like a hardware store or something attached.
Yeah.
We get the interstitial, and this happens a couple different times, of him standing atop the bus listening to opera music, letting just wings flow in the wind, and it looks so fucking cool. So cool.
Paige, one of my favorite reveals is not in this one, but it's in the last one that they do. Because there are moments of magic realism in this movie.
Sure.
Some of it for comedic effect, some of it to save the audience from what probably really happened to Guy Pearce's character as a child. It's like heartbreakingly sad. And then it sets up that like magical realism is taking place, and you think that maybe some of these interstitials are magical realism. And then in the last one, it reveals that no, Guy Pearce is on the roof.
Yes.
And he's like yelling down at Bob, but he thought it was Bernadette. And to me, that's so funny that like they do stop so Guy Pearce's character can go climb on the shoe and lip sync from the top of the shoe as they continue driving across rural Australia.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah. And I do think it just visually, it looks incredibly cool.
It looks awesome. Every time they do it, it looks awesome.
And I do love that this movie, I think, really makes use of the locations that they have.
Yeah.
And like, here's the thing. I don't want to go to Australia because of the bugs. But looking at this movie, I'm like, fuck, I'd want to see that. That does look cool.
Yeah.
You know, I have a soft spot for cool looking deserts. So like, you know.
When they all get in that water and like even Bob is with them at the time and like it's just like sunrise or sunset. I can't remember which one. It's beautiful. I was like, this is beautiful. I would love to see this.
But it's after that first time that we see it where they're back in the bus. And at this point is when we get the story of what may have happened to Adam, Guy Pearce's character, as a child, where it very much sets up that he is going to be victimized by his uncle, who is going to sexually assault him.
Yeah.
And instead pulls the drain, which according to his story, got his uncle's testicles caught in the drain. And he was then there for hours. Now, I don't know if that can happen. I certainly hope that's the real thing that happened, although I think it was probably not the first time his uncle had attempted this. And so I would hope that there was not sexual violence in his past, but I think that that's probably not the case.
Yeah. I think that we are being saved from seeing probably what happened in reality for this character. And it's honestly very, very sad. But that is like, if trauma happens to you and you aren't willing to address it, like you will sometimes make up complete stories that you then look back on like actually happened, you know, like.
Or even just if you don't want to tell someone the story, you know, like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that could be it too. They could just be, you know, Adam could just be full on, or, you know, Guy Pearce's character could be full on just lying in the moment. So he doesn't have to talk about it, you know, which is also fair. Like, who wants to talk about the time they were traumatically assaulted, you know, like.
Yeah.
It's hard. So especially in that setting, it's not like a therapy setting, you know?
Right.
So I get it.
I also love that they have a sewing machine on the bus.
Of course they do.
All of the experienced queens on Drag Race would be proud, because how could you be a queen who can't sew? Which I do think is, hey, if you have the ability and access to things that would allow you to learn how to sew, learn how to sew. It's never not useful.
Honestly, Paige, I'm just going to get in that workroom and hot glue it on the day. It'll be fine. Said every Drag Race star going home that week. Like, you gotta sew.
There's a hem. There's so many hems.
I know.
Sewing, useful, always. Even if it's just hand sewing, always handy to know. But the bus breaks down and they are stranded. So Guy Pearce is going to paint it lavender. Although it does look more pink than lavender. Tink is going to rehearse for the show.
Yeah.
And Bernadette is going to walk to try and find help.
Yeah, because they're sort of like broken down in the literal middle of nowhere, like miles away, stuck in the desert.
Stuck in the desert. Now, Bernadette does ultimately find help. She encounters another car on the road. They drive her back to the bus, and then they immediately drive away and leave them for dead.
Oh, man. It's so sad, though, because it's like Bernadette rides with them to the bus, and they're like, hey, come meet our saviors.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Hugo Weaving is dressed the way Hugo Weaving is dressed.
Yeah, green's not his color.
Exactly. I actually sort of thought that was such a funny way to like downplay what actually happened, which is also something that Community is really good at. Like, I think one of the reasons there are so many very funny drag queens is just because the amount of hate they take all the time. And Bernadette sort of talks about this. Just use it to make you stronger and make you funnier and make you a better performer. They are just like forged in this like terrible fire of society into these great performers. And it's great. I mean, it's not great that it happens. It's great that they're able to turn that trauma into some awesome shit. But
right.
Yeah.
Like everyone would agree that it would be better if the trauma was not there. But if it has to be there, unfortunately, because time machines don't exist.
I mean, that shit still happens now. If you watch Drag Race.
Oh, I just meant time machines to avoid the trauma. Like to go back in time and live a different life.
Like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's like sad story after sad story of like being bullied as a kid and being isolated and who the fuck can't like relate to that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I love RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
Paige, you know what? Warmer and sunnier days are coming, and we can fuel them up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes, so no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. And with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. So if you want to spend more of your sunnier, warmer days focusing on just enjoying the summer and less on what we're going to have for dinner, make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert and stay fueled up with easy, nutritious options from Factor. So head to factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 and use code romancingthepod50, sort of all one word, to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. So it's like 70% off total, split up over 2 months. That's code romancingthepod50 at factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Everyone has moments in life they just can't stop thinking about. Like that one time in middle school when you called your teacher mom. Yeah, that's not leaving your brain anytime soon. Or something amazing like the first time you really traveled and got to see how big and beautiful the world is. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Anyway, they spend their second night in the desert, and who should they meet? A person from an indigenous group living in the desert, who comes upon them and is just like, oh, hey, it's a nice night to hang out here, right? Almost as if they are out there camping on purpose too.
Yeah.
But they get invited to the campfire, and this is where they're like, they watch some members of the group perform, and then they're like, well, now it's our turn. And they do a full drag performance of Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive.
Yes.
And then the next morning, kind of pack up their stuff to figure out how they're going to move forward and get to a better place somehow.
Yeah.
But this is where we hear about Agnetha's poop. Agnetha is one of the members of ABBA, and Agnetha is not the one who was the Lebensborn. It's Annifrid who is the Lebensborn.
Okay.
Annifrid Lyngstad. Now, it has tormented her for most of her life. We feel bad for her. It's not her fault, just in case you were curious. So...
But either way, he stole her poop.
Yes, he stole her poop and put it in a jar. Don't you feel like it would have dissolved in that jar over time? Like, what's she eating?
I did have this question. So, like, did he have to dry it out to make sure it stayed in that shape?
Like resin or something?
Because I would think that over time, that turd would just turn that water into shit water. Like, I am so terrified for what you're Googling and how your face looks at this moment.
Okay, so yes, poop will eventually dissolve in water. But if you search, would poop dissolve in water over time? The searches you get are not what I was looking for, but is a whole bunch of people on Quora and Reddit who have pooped so hard they can't flush it and are now trying to figure out what to do next.
Easy. Poop knife. Let's go.
That's the answer most of the time.
Yeah.
Except for one that just says, what happens if I always defecate in the shower and flush down the feces there?
You're going to waffle stomp it? Hang on. You can't waffle stomp a turd down the shower drain.
The first answer is just, God, you are nasty.
That is accurate. That mofo shit in the shower. Who are they, Mikey? No.
The second one is fecal matter would pass through a shower drain if the P-trap is made of 2-inch ABS, but the amount of water and the velocity might not be enough to make it pass through. Someone, an actual plumber, was like, here's what you need to know if you want to shit in the shower. That being said, I don't want to encourage defecating in the shower, and my bum steer gets you stuck with the steep plumber's fee. However, if the drain becomes obstructed, you can probably clear it with aggressive plunging, but pooping in the toilet is the cornerstone of Western civilization. Please abide.
I'm sorry. Did you just say pooping in the shower is the cornerstone of Western civilization? Because hardcore disagree.
That's what that commenter said.
Oh, okay. Disagree, commenter.
What do you think the cornerstone of Western civilization is?
Not shitting in the shower, Paige.
No. Shitting in the toilet is.
Oh, yeah, no, that's accurate. That actually is, that's a game changer. Paige, until like 100 years ago, if you had to pee even, you had to walk your happy ass to an outhouse.
Yeah.
Now I just walk into the shame closet and do my business and flush it.
I walk to the shame closet, I put out my sad logs, and then I come back in here and record. I didn't think there would be this much poop talk on this episode, but you know what? I'm not mad at it.
Paige, you fucking knew. He's wearing poop around his neck. Like he stole Abba's poop, Paige. You knew we were going to talk about it. It is a feces of importance, and it's nuts that it's in this movie, but I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
Anyway, as they're kind of going through their stuff, a mechanic pulls up.
Yeah.
I would guess informed by someone they met the night before. But he's like, hey, come on back. We'll get the bus figured out, and you can at least stay the night in our town.
Yeah.
Which looks like the town from Last Stop Laramie. If you haven't seen that documentary, go ahead. Now, when they get to his town, they find out that they will need a new gas tank, and he can temporarily fix the bus.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to travel to another city further towards their destination to get the gas tank. So they are going to stay the night and perform, and then probably continue on to the next place.
Yeah.
But this is where Bob, the mechanic, finds out that Bernadette is one of the famous Les Girls, L-E-S girls, which I believe is the name of a famous drag review. That's how it's presented in the movie.
Yeah.
They also meet Bob's wife, Cynthia, in these scenes. And again, it is very much played as the stereotype of a sad older man who has unfortunately purchased a woman to be their bride from another country. That is what it looks like initially.
Yes. That's what I thought until the next flashback. Yeah.
Yes. But Bob tells them like, hey, we could have you perform down at the local pub tonight. You got to stay over anyway. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So they go to perform the next night, and the crowd is receptive, but not super enthused, but it's fun anyway. It's shake your groove thing. How could you hate it?
It's sort of interesting. Like the further you get out of the city, the worse it gets for them.
Yes.
The whole vibe is like they're in a big city and they have to drive through the massive desert to another big city, right? I don't know geographically. I do know the first one was Sydney. I don't know where the second one is.
Alice, yeah.
Yeah, it's like in northern Australia though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a pretty far ways through the desert. At least that's the way the movie positions it.
Right.
But as the further they get out of Sydney, the worse the crowd is at receiving their show.
Yes. And we realize that Cynthia, Bob's wife, is not there. And they're like, where is Cynthia? And he says she's not allowed at the pub anymore because she has an alcohol problem.
Yeah.
We cut to her at home just staring down a locked cabinet. And honestly, the first time you watch it, you figure that there's booze in that cabinet.
I thought so too.
And that's why.
I thought it was just like a bottle full of Jack or something, but no.
No, she climbs up there and it's full of ping pong balls.
When the ping pong balls fell down, I was like, wait, what? And then when she walks in, dressed the way she walks in, I was like, oh, hello, hang on, what's happening here?
Hello. Yes.
Ready, Cannon 1.
Yeah, that was because the second I saw the ping pong balls, I was like, wait a second. But Cynthia interrupts their performance and has her own tape with her name on it that the bar puts in. Like, they are ready and willing to go.
I think the bar had the tape, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Welcome to the stage. You know her, Bob's wife.
Cynthia.
Yeah, it seemed like that kind of vibe.
Yes. And she again had 2 pocketed and inserts one more.
It's a magic trick, guys.
And then she's going the distance. She's going for speed. Like, she is fast pitching those ping pong balls across the room.
They are really moving.
I want to see it.
I'd be afraid I'd bounce one off my forehead. Like, I don't want it.
Just bring wipes.
Why should I be the one providing wipes?
I mean, they could maybe give us tarps for the splash zone, but or rackets so we can hit them back.
Rackets would be hilarious. I'm sorry. Like, if you could hit them back, like, that is spot on comedy. Wonderful.
Amazing. Anyway, Bob tries to pull her down. And initially this reads as like he won't let her perform. He doesn't respect her or whatever. I think he is like trying not to get kicked out of this pub, maybe. Because like, even though the pub is like, yes, it's like, hey, this is maybe illegal.
It might be illegal. I truly don't know.
Who's to say?
But I mean, the club did have the tape.
The tape.
So like, they're not going to report it. I'm not going to say that they're not going to get in trouble or she's not in danger of getting arrested, because if that's illegal and there's a cop in there, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But like, the bar seems to be on board.
Anyway, the next morning, Cynthia is leaving. She's just like, you're a shitty husband. I got shit to do. I'm going to go shoot ping pong balls somewhere else. And he's like, all right, bye.
She's like, I'm going to go fire my ping pong balls at a man of size.
Yes.
Because she does insult his manhood as the last thing she says to him and then drives away.
Yep.
Like she wrote a Taylor Swift song. Like she just drove away with the one-liner.
I mean, look, say what you want about Miss Swift. She do got the one-liners. Homegirl can write a sentence that you're like, oh, that hits me. Like, oof, I'm glad that I'm not the one that was directed at.
I know, right? But like with a voice like Taylor Swift, you know she's got to be a poet. You know what I'm saying? Like she's got to write good songs.
Maybe.
I actually do sort of like Taylor Swift. Like y'all can shake it off all you want.
Anyway, Bob is like, what if I go with you to the city that has the gas tank? We'll go out there. Of course, this is also very clearly, even at this early point, a chance for him to spend more time with Bernadette.
Yeah.
We cut to them kind of camping out the night before because it takes like a day to get there.
Yeah.
And this is where he and Bernadette kind of have a chance to talk, where he asks Bernadette essentially why she transitioned. And Bernadette's answer is essentially, I always felt this way.
Yeah.
Like from childhood, I knew that this is what I was supposed to be. And it's actually a very sweet and kind conversation. But this is also where we get a little bit more about the information about Tink's wife.
Yeah.
Where they're like, do you bat for both teams? And he's like, no. And they're like, well, are you straight? And he's like, no. And they're like, so gay then? He's like, no, I don't know. It's all a bunch of weird things and I'm just me. And that's kind of just how I have to accept it. And the movie never brings us down on any one of those landing spaces. We just have to accept that Tink is Tink. And Tink is a multifaceted person. And I really appreciate that about this movie.
Yeah.
But this is where they find that like natural spring water and they all run in because they haven't been able to have a bath in forever. But what I think is very, very touching in this scene is that Bob specifically helps Bernadette and basically is like, after you, ma'am, like, do you need help? And Bob never once misgenders Bernadette.
No.
Ever. He just meets Bernadette where she is. And I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Love it.
I think it's great.
We stan a wonderful, kind king.
He is like chivalrous towards Bernadette. And I love it.
He cares about
literally
her.
She falls down as they're playing in the spring. She's fine, but like he like helps her up. And it's like, it's great.
Yes. But they all pile back into the bus, and there is a calmness that has taken over the bus at this point. It's more of a cohesive group. They pull into the town where they're going to have to get the gas tank, and Bob warns them. He basically says, look, this is a tough town.
Yeah.
I would say go get dinner or stay in the room, but I'm going to go hang out with the guys that have the parts we need. But otherwise, lay low.
And Felicia is like, I'm going to go with Bob because that sounds way more fun, right?
Yes.
And they're like, no, you're going to go to dinner with us and then come back to the room, or you're going to stay your ass in the room. And that unfortunately doesn't happen because, and again, I think this is because Felicia's the young, person, the first time on the road, like they don't know any better.
Yeah.
And so they're like, sure, it's probably tough or whatever, but it's not like dangerous. And it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And Tink and Bernadette go out to dinner and have a very touching conversation at dinner because they are old friends. We know that. We have known that the whole time. But I think even as old friends, this is one of their first chances to really talk and get to know each other on a more personal level, not just a performer level.
Yeah.
But as that's happening, Felicia gets dressed up in full drag.
Yeah.
Goes to the video store. Isn't excited by that.
Well, it's because they don't have a copy of Texas Chainsaw Mascara, Paige.
Texas Chainsaw Mascara.
I thought that shit was so funny.
But she finds the group of men out around a bonfire. Now it is dark. And so she starts chatting up one of the guys. And there's a very distinct moment where he clocks her. Like she reaches out. He clocks her hand.
Oh, yeah. It's the hand. Yeah.
Yes.
100%. He was fully on board and thought that Guy Pearce's character was something else. Let's just say it that way.
Yes.
And does not handle it well, which this is commonly like how that sort of thing goes down. And from what I understand, those attacks where it's like a misunderstanding at first are more aggressive.
Yes.
Because that person who is the aggressor is like also fighting back against a little bit of what they perceive to be shameful or whatever. Like it's shitty.
Well, because they are making someone else's gender and gender expression have any kind of bearing on their own.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake, because it's like that person is that person, their own thing is their own thing. That doesn't mean anything for you. Yours is your own too. Like,
true.
That's the beauty of it.
What I was getting at, I think, was also they realized that in their eyes, they were attracted to someone who was the same gender as them.
Right.
Again, in their eyes. And that is something that is so abhorrent to them because they're weak inside
Yes.
and a sad, sad person. So they lash out violently in reaction to that realization.
Sometimes people be passing, like really passing.
Guy Pearce is kind of fishy in the moment. Like, I sort of get the mistake.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Of course. But, and here's the thing, that mistake, all it has to be is, oh, okay, now I know. I may make different choices or not in this moment, depending on who you be. But this is also why, because I will hear a lot of people be like, well, why didn't they just immediately tell them? And I'm like, because this shit happens. Like, this happens. That's why people don't necessarily immediately just lead with that and tell people, because then they might put themselves in these positions even faster sometimes. So,
you know what's really weird, though? I've never once been talking to a girl at a bar or after a show one night, and then as I'm like flirting with her being like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a woman. Like, that's not something that comes up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be weird, I think, for that person to be like, oh, by the way, I'm a drag queen or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Well, drag queen would be performer. And then I'd be like, cool, when's your next show? Like, that's a different conversation. But I think maybe dating apps have in some ways made this better.
Yeah, I think so too.
But people will fully ignore it on dating apps too. I just don't want people to be in danger.
Yeah.
And I would err on the side of like, hey, maybe you wait a few dates or whatever to make sure that you're not in danger. Like, that's fine with me. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah. Honestly, that person who is, I don't know how to say this in a way that's like, because I'm not a part of that group that terrible things are done to, I'm not going to tell them when they should tell people.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
That is something that is, I'm sure that they learned and I wouldn't know any better. I'm going to like whatever they want to do.
I'm going to vote when you feel safe.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
You tell people when you feel safe.
Yeah.
But that is not what happens to Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce gets clocked and the entire group chases. And this is after, because as Guy Pearce is talking to a couple people, Felicia hints that she knows Bob. And they're like, oh, you know? And Bob is like, no. Because I think also not only is Bob in a tough spot of like, oh no, they might think I'm something, and I don't know how out Bob is.
Yeah.
But also that Bob might be worried that he might even give Felicia away, and this is kind of a dangerous game at the moment because he knows how they'll react. So they chase her down. She happens to run past where Tink and Bernadette are having dinner, and Bob chases after, and he doesn't quite make it in time because he was not running as fast. So the guy, Frank, gets in one at least solid punch on Guy Pearce and has Felicia tackled to the ground, legs spread, and Bob gets in the middle and is basically like, hey, don't do this. And they're about to turn on Bob. And that's when Bernadette shows up and knees Frank, the leader, in the crotch. Twice. And that does kind of disperse the mob, the horde, if you will.
Yeah, she sort of like the king is the snake's head, right? She cuts the head off the snake, right? And then everyone dissipates because no one really wants to murder Guy Pearce except for that dude. You know?
Right. They have all joined in, though. Like, because he has made it okay, it's going to be okay with everybody. And
Exactly. I'm not saying they weren't just about to stand around and watch it, but no one else had like They
haven't squared up yet, except for the two holding Felicia's legs. I'm like, you put hands on her.
True.
So,
I mean, they would definitely get accessory, right? But like,
of course,
because Bernadette does come in and sort of save the day here, everyone gets out alive, but not unscathed. I mean, Guy Pearce had been punched in the face twice, I think.
Yeah.
And like, it does cut to like Guy Pearce sobbing.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're back in the hotel.
Yes.
And then this is that sweet scene between Bernadette and him.
It is implied that this is Guy Pearce's first interaction with homophobic violence.
I think so too. Definitely not homophobia, because we see that a few times up to this point.
Sure.
But definitely that it was dangerous to be there. Not just a rough crowd, like violent, dangerous to be there.
Yes.
And I think that is the lesson that Bernadette already knew, that Tink already knew, and that Guy Pearce, because they're young and this is their first time out, if you will, didn't know.
Yeah. But I do think the conversation between Bernadette and Adam, because he's out of drag at that point, is very loving. And it is basically like, hey, in some ways, staying in the city takes care of us because we don't experience this. And that's great.
Yeah, the whole thing about the walls keeping us in or keeping them out, like I thought was like a pretty good metaphor for like cities are typically like an amalgamation of a lot of different groups. And because of that, they're typically cooler to minorities than rural areas that are typically one group. And this is all stereotypical, but like aren't typically okay with minorities. It's just the way it is. That's why rural areas all across, and maybe it's just America and Australia, are way more conservative than the cities. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's different. But it's not done in a I told you so way.
Not
it's
at
done
all.
in a I wish you didn't have to learn this lesson this way, but now that you know it, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it basically is like, hey, don't let this make you bitter. Don't let this make you hate what you are. Don't let this make you dull your shine. Let it strengthen you.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very powerful, good message, which does show that Bernadette does love him despite how annoying he can be.
Yeah. It almost comes across as, although I don't think it is, but it comes across as like the enemy of the enemy as my friend. But I actually do think Bernadette loves Guy Pearce's character.
Yes.
And is just that community tends to be very, like, in a loving way, catty with each other. It's honestly a lot like the roast battles that I've seen. It's like that vibe. Because you guys clearly are friends on stage.
Yes.
Just like going at each other.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons I like the podcast, because we do that to each other. And like, it's great, but it's good natured and we love each other. It's not like, they really hate each other.
This is, I told somebody the other day that one specific roast battler is one of the few people that I tolerate fat jokes from in real life and not as part of a roast.
Yeah.
But it's because of the attitude in which they are given. And I'm like, I also know that if anyone else called me fat, he'd cave in their skull.
Yeah.
So like there is a special relationship there.
Yeah. But it's clear these two love each other. Like this is not like a plain Jane, a mandatory meeting situation where they like legit hate each other.
Yeah.
I mean, like they love each other, but they're catty sometimes. That's all I was trying to get at.
Yes.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, because of the night before, no one will give them the parts that they need. So they have to continue on to their final destination and hope that they make it. But in the bus as they're going, we get the flashback from Bob about how he and his wife met, which reveals that it was a very different situation than what we initially expected. And it is very likely that Bob had been closeted for some time because Bob lived in a rural area, but had traveled and had seen drag before.
Yeah.
And woke up after drinking in a situation he did not expect.
Yeah, I mean, he woke up, there's a woman who is fully clothed and like chain smoking sitting in the bed next to him. That to me does not scream they had a wild, passionate night of sex after they got married, even while drunk. So like, that's why I was like, she might even be like pulling a con on him on some level.
I fully think she might be.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, we never find out.
Yes. So Bob and Bernadette have kind of a connection where they have one more night before they get to their destination. And this is where everyone kind of camps out at night. And Bob and Bernadette stay out. The other two go to bed. Bob and Bernadette stay out talking all night and fall asleep in the cake. And who's to say? We don't know what all happened out there, but I think at minimum, they talked for a good portion of the night and established their relationship.
Yeah, I think that if nothing physical happened this night, it definitely laid the groundwork for them getting together, right? This was like the first time they actually spent some like solid one-on-one time. And I do think that like Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce like sort of read that situation and were like, hey, we're going to go to bed. Do you guys want to stay up for a nightcap? And they're like, yeah, I think we will.
So they get to their destination the next day. This is where they meet Marion, who is Tink's wife, and Benj, Tink's son, that he did not tell them about. And they all kind of freak out about it because they're like, this is a big deal. This is like way more than like you said it was.
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old son.
Yeah.
They the whole time it's been like, hey, we're going on this road trip to perform at, I think it's literally his wife's casino. I mean, she doesn't like own it, but she like works there.
Or she's the entertainment director of it. Yeah.
Yeah. She has a high level job there. Doesn't own it, but like she's the reason they're going out there. So they know that they're married, don't know anything about a child, which I can understand. If you were under the assumption that Hugo Weaving's character was just straight up a gay man who did drag, you'd be like, wait, you have a kid?
Yeah. It's news to all of them. And some of them have been his friends for years.
Yeah.
So yeah, news to everybody.
Yeah.
But he basically confirms with Marion, he's like, Benji, the kid's not going to be at the show, right? And she's like, no, he'll be in his bedroom.
No, but they Dead Poet Society him in this.
Yes.
Which I was like, I liked it in this movie. I didn't like it so much in Dead Poet Society because the way it turns out.
Yeah. But we see the whole performance and we've got lizards. We've got the Sydney Opera House. It is amazing. And it's so great.
Yeah.
And they do the whole thing, like full 5.5 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And towards the end, we reveal Benj has been there the whole time and is like cheering for his dad. He's so excited to see him.
Yeah.
And see him perform.
This is another time that I cried. I thought it was so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
We cut to the next day and he's kind of talking with Marion of like, first of all, I don't appreciate that you brought him here without telling me. Fine.
Right.
But like, what am I supposed to tell him? And she's like, the truth. You're his father. You're a good father by being you because you love and care about him.
Yeah.
Just tell him the truth. And as that's happening, Bob rescues the flowers that he brought to Bernadette before the performance because they were kind of getting crushed in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And brings them to Bernadette's room and she lets him in. And we cut to Benj talking to Adam, aka Felicia, Guy Pearce's character. But this is my mom has a girlfriend, but she got over her, so it's fine. You'll get over her. I've got Lego. And it is hope in his face of like, oh, he doesn't care at all. He's not thinking badly of me. He's not threatening me. Like he's a kid, but still like maybe the next generation will grow up into this not being an issue.
That is very community based, right? How you grow up. That's sort of the way I grew up. Like I didn't care really if anybody was gay or trans or whatever because it like didn't impact me and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to live their life, Yeah. So like it was different for that kid's generation because I'm in that kid's generation.
Yeah, absolutely. So they go out for like a day in the bush and they're doing charades and he gets a chance to finally talk to his kid. And his kid is like, I really like ABBA. I would love to see the ABBA one. But basically his kid is just immediately accepting of who he is and is just excited that he's seeing and hanging out with his dad.
Yeah.
And that his mom says he's the best in the business. So I'm excited to see it. And after that, Hugo Weaving's character, Tink, decides to frock up with Bernadette and Felicia and to hike up to this overlook that Felicia wanted to see in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I mean, she sets it up as like, I want to go climb that wearing drag, which honestly, wearing heels and then going on a hike seems terrible to me.
Terrible
but like,
idea.
they do it in this movie. And this is that really quick like part I was talking about where Hugo Weaving like is presenting hyper male when they first leave to go have a day in the bush, as you said. And like, as the day goes by, they're like, hey, we're going to get ready to go for a hike, which means they're going to go put on drag, Bernadette and Guy Pearce. And Hugo Weaving's like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's almost positioned like, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a father now.
Yeah.
And like, that's when he goes out with his son and like, they go and play a little bit. And he has that conversation and he has that realization of like, oh, I need to be like the kind of father that I'm going to be, not the kind of father that I think I'm supposed to be, or like not who my dad was or whatever he's living out in that moment.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, hang on. I got to go change real quick. And then he changes and they go walk up to the overlook.
Yes.
To the Vista page.
The Vista. But we cut to a month later. They finished the run of shows. They're leaving to go home. Guy Pearce has given his number to one of the door guys.
Well, so he didn't give his number to one of the door guys. The door guy was like, you better give me your number before you leave. And he goes, already beat you to it. If you go to the bathroom stall, the second stall from the entrance, it'll say for a good time, call Felicia. That's my number.
Yes.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Very fun.
Yeah.
But this is where Bob is like, I wish I was going with you, but I'm not. And Bernadette's like, I'm not going with you either. The implication being she's staying with Bob. And I do love her acting in this moment of just like silent tears of like, I'm scared, but I feel like I have to see this through because Bob might be the partner I've been looking for this whole time. It gets me every time.
I know, I cried too. And also like, it's not just, I think, the romance part of it. I think it's also I think my days as a traveling performer are behind me.
Yes.
And it's time for me to put down roots somewhere. That's almost a different arc. It's not a romantic arc, but it is an arc that we get out of Bernadette's character. And I honestly love that. Like,
because she's going to stay and book the entertainment while Marion goes on vacation.
Yeah. She is taking over the job that Tink's wife does.
Right.
Well, it seems Tink's wife sort of goes on the road with them for a while.
No, Tink's wife is not going with them. She's going on her own adventure.
Oh, that's right. She only goes with them to the, yeah.
It's just the two of them and the kid.
She's only in the bus for like a very short time. You're right.
Yep.
But like, he does go back to Sydney, and that's like part of the deal was like, I raise him till he's 8, and then we tag team this bitch because I haven't had a day off in 8 years.
Yes.
His wife says. And I love, and it's great.
So we cut to Sydney, presumably after they get back.
Yeah.
And now they are doing the ABBA show as a two-hander, but they're actually enjoying it and having fun.
Yeah.
It is not phoning it in like we originally saw.
Right.
And we see that Benji is in the audience and loving it.
Yes, it's the ABBA.
Yeah, it's because of the ABBA.
And that's the movie.
Although only kind of, because I do always sit through the credits because Save the Best for Last is an amazing song. And how could you not?
Okay, I had a question about that.
Uh-huh.
The person who is singing that, or possibly lip syncing that, who is that?
I don't know.
Because it's not a member of the main cast.
Yeah, they're in shadow, and so I'm not sure. It may be another, it's definitely another drag queen. But I don't know who it is. And it's shot in such a way that you don't really know until the very, very end.
Hey, I looked it up.
Okay.
It is rumored to be, and I'm only saying it's rumored to be because I couldn't find it on anywhere that wasn't Reddit.
Got it.
But apparently it was Lizzie Gardner, who was one of the costume designers, and actually sort of became famous because they made a dress for The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, that was made up of 245 American Express gold cards, and it was going to be in the movie.
Okay.
But American Express was like, no, you can't do it. So she wore it herself to the Oscars.
Yes, absolutely, bitch. Yes.
And it became like a huge thing. But apparently it's her. And I will say this, there's a picture of her online that does look a lot like the person you see in silhouette in the end credits. So I do sort of believe it, but it's not, I would say, confirmed.
There is also a listing for her uncredited as one of the maids at one of the hotels, and the director uncredited as one of the doormen. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool.
So that's possible.
Anyway, but so having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you think about The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Paige?
I love Priscilla. I would love to see it live on stage sometime because there is a stage version of it, and I think that would be phenomenal.
If it's not a musical, like where they're actually singing, that would be a crime because
it is a musical.
Yeah.
I believe. But yeah, I'm a big fan. So for you, this was your first time. Did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it. I think it's great. I mean, I do understand, like, if you're not into drag and camp and stuff like that, how this movie may not be for you. I do think the pacing's not awesome in the first 40 minutes of this movie. Get Bob on the bus faster is my only, like, complaint, really.
Yes.
Everything else is great.
I would love if you're in the Facebook group and you have seen this movie or aware of this movie, what's your modern fan cast?
Ooh, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Who would you cast today? Because like I have ideas of who I think could be great in it. But yeah, what's your fan cast? I feel like that would be really interesting to see.
Trixie Mattel for the Hugo Weaving part.
Ooh, maybe.
They have similar hairlines.
They do have similar hairlines. I might go with maybe like a Jonathan Bailey instead.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, or what's his name? Who played the priest on
oh shit.
Right?
Andrew Scott is his name.
Andrew Scott.
That dude's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
Yes.
Well, here it is with your fun facts. Priscilla,
Fun facts. The most fun facts. Due to the heavy filming schedule, lots of filming was done while they were actually en route from one filming location to other filming locations in the bus.
That makes sense.
The bus was essentially a mobile set, but because it was so small, there was no room for the crew. So through most of the movie, the crew are in the shots, hiding under clothes and props.
What? Amazing.
Sometimes once you know that, you can sometimes pick them out.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty fun. Where you're like, why did that pile of clothes move to a different part of the...
Why is that pile of clothes breathing?
Yeah. So the town of Broken Hill is where they first encounter rural homophobia. And at the time, that town had that reputation in real life as well. However, after this film got very popular, it established its own annual drag festival, including a parade that passes by the character's hotel, themed after the movie.
I love that.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
As of 2024, this is still the most recent contemporary set film that is non-period, non-fantasy, non-sci-fi to win the Academy Award for Best Costume Design, because it's almost always period films. So this is the one set in the most recent future, or most recent history.
That's great. I mean, they do have like ostrich heads on at one point. Like the costumes are like great.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
This is also like the foam wigs, like that becomes a whole like tradition. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
At one point, they're literally dressed like the dinosaur that kills Wayne Knight in Jurassic Park.
Yes.
That literally came out probably while they were filming this movie.
Love it. Well, I think they were just trying to be horned lizards from the desert because they're horny, but also just horned lizards from the desert they drove through.
Sure. Yeah, sure. But like they definitely have like the neck thing that does
the Pope collar. Yeah.
Yes. The Pope collar.
But we get some close-up shots of those lizards in the movie. So my thinking was always that they modeled their costumes after that. But
sure. Steven Spielberg knows the truth.
Yeah. According to the director, Stephen Elliott, he got the idea for the film while seeing a plume of feathers break off of a drag queen's headdress during Sydney's Mardi Gras parade and go tumbling down a deserted street like a tumbleweed in a Sergio Leone Western, which is a great visual for sure.
Yeah.
And if you're American and you're like, why does Australia have a Mardi Gras? Shocker, Mardi Gras is actually not an American holiday. We did a whole podcast episode on it. You're welcome.
It's called Mardi Gras. Those words are not English.
No, yeah. It's based on Carnival. It's a lot of stuff. Anyway, so, I mean, the version and the way that we celebrate in America is unique to America, but the holiday itself, not American.
Yeah, and different countries do Christmas different. Like, that's not uncommon that people will celebrate it differently. Like, the way the British people celebrate July 4th, they barely even observe it.
They don't do anything.
It's crazy. And you'd think they'd be way happier about getting rid of us.
Getting rid of us?
Yeah.
I was there one year on July 4th with my father, who still wore his Old Navy flag shirt that day, and asked a waiter. He was like, what do you guys do for the 4th of July? And I'm like, Dad, like, The holiday is us celebrating our independence from them.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Love your dad.
Anyway, the director of photography was filming this and Muriel's wedding at the same time. We haven't done Muriel's wedding. We will do Muriel's wedding because it's got Toni Collette and a bunch of amazing people and a bunch of stuff in it. And the wonderful line of just, "You're terrible, Muriel." It's one of my faves. Anyway, the famous flip-flop dress, which helped win the Academy Award for costuming, cost only $7.
I love drag.
Because I think they bought the foam and cut it. I think it wasn't actual flip-flops.
Oh, but like still, the fact that like they made something that I'll call like high art
Yes.
was $7, guys.
$7.
That's insane.
Yes. Now, the American film, To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, which came out the following year,
Yeah.
has a very similar plot and has led to accusations that it was just a blatant ripoff of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
It is sort of a road trip movie too.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one. I remember liking it, but it does have a similar story beats.
There are some similarities between them. For me, Priscilla's the better movie, and it does seem like some of it was ripped off. But
I mean, it's
yeah.
been a long time since I've seen that, but they are two movies that feature 3 drag queens or thereabouts on a road trip. So yeah, it does seem like some of it was a little bit ripped off.
Yeah.
But Patrick Swayze in a dress, baby! You know, like...
He looks good. Anyway, so Julia Cortez, who played Cynthia, provided her own costumes for the ping pong ball scene. They are just a performer. They don't do the ping pong balls, but they picked that costume because it had a strategically placed zipper.
That is featured in the movie. Like, we see
That
it.
is featured in the movie.
Yeah.
We see it. Now, according to the director, Stephen Elliott, he took all 3 of the leads out in drag prior to filming, and none of them was recognized. So Guy Pearce, according to his story, took the opportunity to be outrageously rude because people didn't know who he was. Terrence Stamp, according to the story, forgot he was in drag and started hitting on girls. And Hugo Weaving got super drunk and laid under a table for hours, tapping his finger in time to the music. So that last final detail ended up being incorporated into the movie in the hotel room scene when Bernadette is beating up Adam for misgendering her.
Yeah.
So when they went to go film the scene where Guy Pearce stands on the roof of the bus in the silver gown, there was no wind at first. And then suddenly a great wind came up for only 45 minutes. And that allowed them to get the shot.
Yeah, and that shot is probably my favorite of those shots because it's metallic and beautiful.
According to Terrence Stamp, he got into character by imagining himself as a beautiful woman. But the director told the makeup artist to make him look as bad as possible because he wanted him to appear old and tired. And Terrence Stamp didn't watch any of the dailies. So he didn't know how he looked until the premiere of the movie. And apparently the makeup artist apologized to him at the premiere. However, I think Bernadette looks perfect. I think it suits the character.
I think it does too.
I think the performance is reserved and grounded in a way that I think works really, really well in the movie. So now, back when this film was released in 1994, multiple actors and producers still clung to the belief that playing a gay character on screen would be committing career suicide. However, all 3 of your leads in this movie went on to have great success in mainstream Hollywood blockbusters. And a lot of people credit that with kind of dispelling that myth.
I mean, every one of them had after this a huge career.
Yes.
We talked about it with Hugo Weaving. 10 years after this, he was literally at the same time in 2 of the biggest franchises or like trilogies of a decade.
Yeah. There's a line in the closing credits that says shown in dragorama at select theaters.
Yeah.
This refers to some theaters using a mirror ball and colored lighting during the final lead dance number at the end to make it feel like you're watching it in person.
I love it.
Nearly every crew member can be seen in the movie at some point.
That's great.
Either crouching or in an audience because they didn't have a lot of money to make this.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I'll end on this one. David Bowie, John Cleese, Tim Curry, Tony Curtis, and John Hurt were all considered to play Bernadette.
Oh.
Most of them turned it down.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, however, also was up for the role of Mitzi and turned that down. However, for Tim Curry, I believe it was a scheduling conflict.
I mean, Tim Curry has no problem doing drag, clearly. I don't think anyone didn't do a great job, but I would have loved to see Tim Curry in either Bernadette or...
Would have been amazing.
Yeah, Mitzi, yeah.
Tony Curtis had also done drag in Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
David Bowie is
David Bowie.
John Cleese had also done drag on Monty Python a number of times. John Hurt was one of the few that hadn't really had previous drag experience in their performing history, but all of them ended up passing, and I'm kind of glad they did. I think Terrence Stamp did a fantastic job.
Me too. Terrence Stamp is wonderful, yeah.
Wonderful. They are. Now, we'll end on this fun one. Priscilla, the bus, was one of the opening ceremony parade entries at the Summer Olympics in Sydney, complete with a giant silver shoe on top. And the American network showing the event cut around that entry, even though it can be seen in the background.
Oh my God.
It's fun that Australia did it. It's not fun that we're prudes. But those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think, and you may know, but what do you think the production budget was for The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
Ooh, I think this is in 1994.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this cost $1.5 million.
You're close. It was $2 million. Yeah. Which in 94, that's roughly $4.2 million today, but still, that's pretty cheap for, like a traveling movie. You know, there's a lot of things that are problems when you travel like that, like sound especially. Like when you said that they were capturing large portions of the movie just en route between sets.
Yeah.
I began to have a panic attack for their audio engineer.
Yes.
Just because you have to solve for so many engine noise and the hum of the road and all of that shit. And fixing that in 94, good Lord.
Well, and not only that, here's my favorite part of it, because they are supposed to be moving. So you have to solve for it, but then reintroduce it.
Yes.
So you have to solve for it to get clear dialogue, but then also put that sound back in so that you Foley the movement of the bus. That had to be maddening of getting rid of the bus noises to put back in the bus noises.
Yeah. So it sounds, quote, right.
Right. Which I'm sure they didn't use the actual captured bus noises that on the day. I'm sure they still Foleyed it.
I'm sure they Foleyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sound design is a nightmare that the audience largely doesn't even consider because it's so good typically.
Yes.
But if it's not done right, believe me, you notice.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Foley artists don't get enough love. But this movie premiered, at least in the U.S., on August 12th, 1994. It was 14th in the theaters, which is literally dead last out of the movies that it tracked for that weekend. Now, I'll say this, though. And I'll go ahead and tell you, it got beat by the number one movie was Clear and Present Danger. Number 2 was Forrest Gump. Number 3 was The Mask. Number 4 was The Little Rascals. And number 5 was True Lies. Every one of those movies I think I saw in the theaters, guys.
Yeah, they're all classics.
Those are hits. Anyway, also, right above The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And I bring that up just to say it was in its 23rd week. It was in 241 theaters, and 4 Weddings and a Funeral brought in $248,000. Okay?
That's hard to do.
Well, I mean, it was in 241 theaters.
Yeah, I know.
The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert brought in $219,000, and it was only in 7 theaters.
That's what's up.
Yeah. So it was only in 7 theaters, and it still made enough money to be tracked on the national list. So it did okay for 7 theaters, guys. Its per theater average was really high.
Yeah.
For instance, Forrest Gump, that was second this week, was in 2,204 theaters, and its per theater average was $6,400. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert's per theater average was $31,300.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's really good. It just wasn't in that many theaters. So it was in theaters for a total of 26 weeks, but again, it was never in many theaters. It did eventually get up into 53. So it didn't do amazing, but I'll just go ahead and tell you worldwide. And I'm also doing this because it's somewhat murky, because this does include a lot of re-releases that came out in many later years. So in its initial box office run, it didn't do amazing, but ever since then, it has brought in $12.4 million worldwide. And that was in its initial release and in some re-releases. So it definitely has made money at this point. But that is your box office. So Paige, this week we watched The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. What are we going to watch next week? Hey, everybody, this is future Todd breaking in here to let you know that when we recorded this, we weren't sure what we were going to do for next week. We have since come to a decision, and we will be doing 2022's Anything's Possible that is available to stream right now on Amazon Prime. So your homework for next week is to watch Anything's Possible and then report back for that episode next week. So Paige, do you want to hit it with that romance scale?
Sure. Our romance scale is a scale of how romantic we found this movie. I don't know that we established a first or a last one, but it's on a scale of 4 because Mikey insisted, even though that seems like the weirdest number.
I think you read a study once that a scale of 1 to 4 is more accurate than a scale of 1 to 10, which honestly, I could see that being a plausible thing. But man, I would say a 2, only because I want more Bob on the bus.
Yes.
And I want to actually see them falling for each other. A lot of them falling for each other is...
It's very subtle. It's there, but it's subtle.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. So, is it super romantic? No. There definitely is a love story that happens. I honestly wanted more of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I would land around the same of 2 just because I want more. Not because what we have is bad, but because I want more of it.
Now, what we have, I think, is great. It honestly just excludes us a little bit from the love story that I want to see. Because they are falling in love during that month that they're at that casino residency. And I think before they even get there, but we don't get the nightcap conversation where they fall asleep on the cake.
Well, and I mean, even when they're at dinner, after they've done that kind of bath or whatever, Tink is like, clearly you guys have feelings for each other. And she's like, no. And she's like, I can see it.
Yeah.
So it was happening before, but yes.
That's when Bernadette says, he's far too old. Of course, so am I. But
yeah. Yeah.
Which I loved that line. I thought it was so silly and fun, and I loved it. But that's your romance scale.
Yes. Todd, do you have a review for us to read?
I do have a review for us to read. But I also have a Spotify comment. So let me start with that because that's the one I have pulled up right now. And that one is going to be from our most recent Booksmart episode. And a lot of them were in this vein, but I'm going to read Connor's. And they say, I love the show. You all are amazing. You talked about first cartoon crush, and mine was the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo.
Okay. And
we had a lot of people who wrote in
who their cartoon crush was.
Cartoon crush was. Yeah. And listen, the Hex Girl, when he said that, I was like, I remember the Hex Girls. So they had an effect on me too.
I don't. So okay though.
They were a little gothy, some might even call them scene kid a little bit,
I picture it. I just don't ever remember seeing that episode, but okay.
Y'all, they could get it. Anyway, so thank you so much, Connor, for that Spotify comment. Now I am going to read Christine's review, and they wrote, very wonderful podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I have just started listening a couple weeks ago and haven't been able to stop. You guys are so much fun to listen to. And thanks so much for reviewing my favorite movies. 5 stars. So Christine, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have me read your 5-star review or Spotify comment, leave us one of those things and we will do this every week. So you know what's up. Leave us a review, baby, or Spotify comment. So yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limits. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be it for us this week. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
To dragpletion.
Work.
And don't fuck it up.